Intern, right?
See
you walking sometimes.
Would you do the roll call,
I
please?
see you walking.
Okay, Kelly?
So.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you're here. Dan? Danny?
Here.
Here.
Oh,
Lynn here?
Just
Tracy?
barely heard you.
Tracy here. Robert?
Robert here.
Ken?
Ken here.
Okay, awesome.
Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I apologize. If y'all's mics aren't on, could you turn them on, please?
Okay, does anyone have any amendments or deletions to the agenda?
I do not.
If not,
Nope.
then would someone like to
I make a motion to accept the agenda for the Historic Preservation Commission meeting of November 18th, as is.
I'll second that.
We need to take a roll call business.
All in favor?
All in favor?
I
And approval of the minutes. Anyone have any changes to the minutes from the previous meeting?
Nope, they look good.
Hearing none, then a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, does anyone have any conflicts of interest relevant to
Nope.
today's meeting?
no.
Do we have anyone in the public?
We look real quick. We have no raised hands.
Any special presentations?
We do not.
Any business items?
We do not.
Okay, then on to our discussion items, the historic resource survey addresses for the intensive level survey.
So for the historic resource survey, we actually have Ron Sladek on right now. And I'd actually like to let him give an update on what he's been doing first before we dive into y'all discussing what the last 4 addresses for the intensive level surveys should be. So welcome, Ron.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for letting me join you by computer or online, I should say, this evening. I appreciate that. Yeah, in terms of an update on the report, I was hoping to have it in your hands by now. However, what has turned out to be the major hill I have had to climb, I brought up at the last meeting when I was actually there with you in person, which has to do with the historic context. I mentioned at the last meeting that I have had a lot of additional writing to add to the document, and that's been the case. So I have been busy conducting a lot of research and writing. The document at this point is much longer than it was last time you saw it. The biggest issue is, you probably remember me talking about the fact that there hasn't been a really solid history of Minturn written in terms of written by a historian with footnoted records and a bibliography and all of that. The memoir written by Bill Burnett is great, but I needed to provide a historic context in the document. That's always part of these reconnaissance surveys or even intensive level surveys. I have to write a history of the community. In most places, I'm able to turn to all kinds of published materials, especially books that have been written by historians and articles, that sort of thing, to use as references. Those are secondary sources, they're known as. In the case of Minturn, there is no secondary source other than the memoir that Bill Burnett put together. So what I've been doing since I last met with you is I have gone through probably several thousand newspaper articles that were published starting in the 1880s, maybe even late 1870s, that started to put together the picture of Minturn's origins and who was involved in that. There are names that, of course, you know already because you guys are involved with this subject, but the general public may not be as familiar with. And starting to piece together the story of how Minturn ended up coming together and happening, where it is, and why it's there, and how everything started to develop. So I've added, like I said, numerous pages that I've already researched and written to the document that provide details about all of that. That's all footnoted so that someone can then go back and use this report as a reliable resource in the coming years, and it will serve as the foundation for understanding the individual properties that we're going to document moving forward through the intensive level survey, but it will also serve as a basis of understanding of the reconnaissance work that's been done. Just as an example, I pinned down all kinds of information about the Bucco family that I located in terms of biographical material, who they were, where they came from, how they ended up in what became Minturn. I looked at the original homesteads that were taken out in that area and mapped those out. I looked into Minturn himself and who he was. Everybody knows that little snippet about him being involved with the railroad, but how did that come about? And how did his name get attached to this location? So that's all written up. It's all in great shape, and I'm continuing on. I had continued on through the 1880s, 1890s, into the early 1900s, and I'm continuing to finish up the research and write about the remaining development of Minturn up through the mid 1900s. So you're going to end up with a comprehensive, well, I shouldn't use the term comprehensive, a very reliable, professionally written history of the development of Minturn. That's different from what Bill Burnett, for example, did, where he talked mostly about the families. I'm not getting to the depth of talking about the families because that's beyond what we really need right now. Those will come up in the individual property documentations. You have Bill Burnett's book that talks extensively about many of the families that were there. Although we have to remember that he was born in 1920, so his memories do not extend back to the 1880s or 1890s. Everything from prior to when he was old enough to remember what was going on is kind of considered hearsay, as it would be treated in a legal setting. Those were things he heard about, but didn't experience personally. So I wanted to give you that update on terms of where I am. I'm continuing to work on it. In fact, I spent the whole day today, again, writing up additional paragraphs, additional sections in that narrative. And we'll have this ready for you. Are you guys meeting in December?
Let me look. As long as there is something to meet about, yes, it does not fall within the week of a holiday, so we would have the meeting.
You would have a meeting?
December 16th.
Oh, I see. If there's something on the agenda.
Right.
Okay. So I do need to get this off my desk and in your hands. So I'm going to try to have that to you in time for that meeting. I think I should be able to do that. If you'd like to sit down and review it for that meeting, great. If not, that could be done for the January meeting. Other than that, unless you have some questions about the report, we needed to talk about the last 4 properties you might want to add to the list that Madison forwarded to me of properties that you'd like to include for the intensive level survey. And at this point, I expect them to be really diving into that right after the first of the year. I say that because I want to get this report done and in your hands before I start working on the intensive level part of the project.
I have a question. Hi, Ron. Thanks for everything. I'm curious, you said you did a deep dive, 1880s, 1870s. I'm just curious, can you tell me what some of your sources are? I'm just really curious. I teach U.S. history this semester, and so I'd love to know what your primary sources are.
Yeah, sure. And just so you know, I'm building a bibliography that's going to be in this reconnaissance report. So you will have all these sources in your hands once I send that over to you. Yeah, let me tell you what a few of those are. The first section that I wrote up was all about the development of mining and rail transportation, and how it ended up extending down through the upper Eagle River Valley. So there are a number of resources that relate to both mining and railroad history that I consulted. There are a bunch of those. So those are all in the bibliography. Also, going beyond that, I started looking at the General Land Office records, which is now part of the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. Looking at the original homestead filings for what became Minturn, to try to figure out, well, what exactly did the Bucos own? And it turns out there were 3 members of the family who owned land in that area. I may be telling you something you already know. George Bucco was the primary one, but his father and one of his brothers also homesteaded in the area. So I wanted to figure out, well, where were the lands that they owned? And those records from the General Land Office told me that and provided that information. I also looked at early U.S. Census records, starting around 1880 and going up through so far through about the 1921, but I'm going to be looking at others beyond that as well. I haven't yet written the section on like the 1920s, 30s, 40s. Also, a lot of newspaper articles, a lot of them. Many
Like the Rocky Mountain News or?
Yes, Rocky Mountain News provided a bunch, but also the Leadville Herald Democrat was reporting regularly on railroad news as it related to the Eagle River Valley. Also, there were some articles from the Eagle Valley Enterprise, the Eagle Valley Blade. Looking to see what else. There was a really great article about Robert Minturn from the New York Tribune. Those are most of the newspapers. The Rocky Mountain News often quoted from articles that were being published out of Red Cliff. In other words, they were reprinting articles. So that's where I found those, because the Red Cliff newspapers aren't available online, but they were reprinted in some cases by the Rocky Mountain News. I mentioned census records. Let me see if there's anything else. Hold on one second. I'm just scrolling through the bibliography. There was a biography of George and Eva Bucco published in 1899 in the Portrait and Biographical Record of the State of Colorado. But I added to that through other newspaper articles. And I traced them through his death in Oregon in 1919. So I could go on, but those are most of the records. Early Days on the Eagle was a publication that came out in 1965 that I utilized. So anyway, that probably gives you a sense, at least, of the resources that I've been consulting. Some of those have come out of the Eagle. Some of those have come out of the Eagle County Library. Some of those documents, and also burial records online, and there's a bunch of online material about Robert Minturn and who he was that I located. Does that answer your question, Adam?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, and again, you'll have all this in your hands shortly.
Ron, in looking over this list we have, I may have mentioned it as your last meeting, but in your report, you have the yellow Nelson House as 151 Main. That's 155.
Oh, in the document, it says that?
Yes, in this report.
Let me.
The last report you gave us with all the identification of the houses, et cetera.
Whoops. Yeah, 155 is the yellow one. Okay.
Correct.
I do see that in front of
So
me.
if you're redoing it, if you do that, I have been not in any professional level at all, but I've been having kind of what I would call an interview with some of the older people in town. Steph from the distillery and I went up and saw Ella Burnett one day for a few hours. I sat down with Daryl, who used to own the hardware store building. He gave me some information on that. And there was a fire in there once and what the building was prior to his having it as a hardware store. I don't have it with me, and then I sat down with Terry Pearson, who owns an old property at the far end of town, and her sister Billie Jean, who lives in the little log house behind Holy Toledo. Talked with them for a couple hours, and we decided we probably should get together some more. And they had all kinds of interesting old history about Minturn with them. So I kind of took what you said about we were focusing too much on landmarking and we weren't focusing on history. And I'm just writing it down in a notebook so that we have it. And sometime I hope to, go through it and make it a bit more organized. Steph did record it on her phone, but she hasn't figured out what to do with it yet for Ella's interview. And if there's anything else you can think of that, like I found out the country club, you were asking in that one picture, there was a little building to the side. The country club that originally was there is totally gone because it burnt down. And the one that's there was a rebuild. And that empty parking lot was another small building at some point. Things like that, And I found out that the yellow house across from the Scarab used to be the funeral parlor. The one that Darren Hokie owns, that one. So I found out neat things like that, not with any real backing, but these people have lived in this town 70 years. Ella Burnett has been here 76. She turned 98 in February. So we did her first. And we don't want to lose anything from her because she knows a lot. She was a nurse up in Gilman at the hospital and she lived up there for a long time. So if there's anything else you think I should be asking them that you'd like me to try to find out, I'm happy to do that.
Okay, that would be great. I do find that these survey projects tend to be a process of discovery. They tend to spark interest in, let's see what else we can find out about the town that we didn't know before, whatever town it's going on or neighborhood it's going on in. So what you're doing is just great. And it does tend to happen this way, that these projects, like I said, tend to spark further research and the capturing of additional information that might otherwise be lost. So it's doing already exactly what we hope it would do by your reaching out and starting to do those interviews and recording information that people have available.
Yeah, my friend Pat Nolan, she takes care of the seniors, and I asked her to try to get as much information out of them as possible, and she's doing some recordings also. So
My next is to do Lynn and Iva. I was recommended to do them next by Terry and Billie Jean. So I'm going to the seniors' lunch tomorrow because they're doing a celebration, I think, for Ella's birthday. And I will see them there, and I'm going to ask them if I can come over sometime and sit with them. But even Daryl, who hasn't been here that long, was full of information on the building because he owned it for so many years.
yeah, and so is Rob with the mattress store. They
didn't own that building.
No, but he's been in there for so long.
Yeah,
and if you talk to Rob, he has so many stories about the Myers and the building. And
so we'll just keep trying to do that with what we can. I don't know enough about technical things, but I had called High Five because somebody said they might come out and do those kind of things for us, and the price was ridiculous. They said that we could rent their equipment to do it ourselves, but I have no knowledge of how to do that. So I decided rather than trying to figure all that out, I just get to work on putting it in pen and paper, so at least we have it.
Better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a way to, I would imagine, and Steph would probably be the best resource. There's got to be a way to take a recording and have it transcribed.
She wants to edit it. She edited it, and she would like myself and Ella to look at it prior to her turning it over to the town.
Yeah.
I think she can just get into one of their computers.
But like if Kelly's got a recording, there's got to be some transcribing AI resource online. There's got to be.
And if it isn't there, it'll be there within months.
Yeah, yeah. So, because the note taking is great, but gosh, it's so great to have the actual transcription.
Absolutely.
That's
So
great you're doing that.
I know that we need to make a decision, or you need to make a decision about other properties. And with the list that you've provided, I've looked at all of these and they look like great ideas for pursuing the intensive level documentation. They're all on Main Street, and I think that's a really great place to start. Um, you've got so many buildings on just along Main Street alone that are worthy of intensive level documentation. That I would recommend just sticking with Main Street for this first shot at this, and coming up with another four properties on Main Street. A few of the ones that I was looking at that might be worth pursuing, and I'm sure you have other ideas, but one of which is 142. The facade has been altered, but it's a little commercial building with an old garage behind it. I don't know if it was a home or it was a commercial building. Now it looks like it has a commercial facade.
42.
Frank's house? Frank?
That's probably Frank's house.
Yeah.
Actually, it is, because I wrote down names, Totally. It's Frank's house.
So it's
And it's
serving as a
142.
residence.
He
Yes.
still lives there, yes. And was he born here? I think he was
think so.
born here. Yeah.
I mean, it's just interesting because it has a commercial looking
Wait,
false front on it.
142 is Frank's house.
No, it's the time.
I can't, it's odd numbers.
Another one is
Larry might know something about it because he's talked to him.
Gene and Hawkeye have helped Frank out for years.
Yeah.
They'd be the people to get you in there to talk to him. The question is how much information you'll get from him.
His car is a historic building.
Or at least the most photographed thing in town.
Yes.
What are the other ones you'd recommend?
well, I was thinking about 382. Let
382.
me open up that picture.
That house is, I think, currently owned by Tom Sullivan.
Sullivan.
Yeah.
And that had 4 votes. So
And I haven't talked to Tom. I know we found newspapers in it at one remodel, but I talked to Mrs. Myers. She finally wrote me back, and she sent me the deed from when they bought it back in the 40s. And so I have that name, which helps trace it, but I don't know who built the house. But I've remodeled a lot of houses in town, and that's pretty, that and Helen's house are the only two that like actually have nice trim work and high ceilings. So it had to have been someone pretty wealthy in town before the Myers owned it. But I don't know anything beyond that.
What do you know? Tom was telling me about it. I think his name was Byron, and he owns the greenhouse to the south of Tom's house on Main Street. Tom takes care of it.
Yeah, 400. Yeah,
And he
the
is,
Walkers.
I think, in Nevada, did he said? I think. And
They're
he's
in
still-
Kansas.
He
Yeah,
talked to his son about us possibly talking to him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't come up here because I think he's in his 90s.
his family still comes out though.
Yes. But if anybody's going that way, they said they'd love us to come and talk with them. And I won't do that until maybe next spring. Who knows? That's the kind of thing that we're trying to follow here is timing. So I just wanted to mention that if you know them.
Yeah, and that family was connected with our lumberyard also, and there was a documentary that was partially filmed in that house, and it talks about a lot of the history. And they owned the log cabin at the top of I forget what one of the hiking trails in Eastvale, but they restored a log cabin up there, and there's the family filmed a documentary, and a lot of it was filmed inside that house. It's kind of cool, and I randomly happened upon that TV show on History Channel many years ago. So, and it's interesting because they own the they cooked for the mine, and the mine was also in cahoots with our lumberyard that I didn't realize what the name was until I found a board in Helen's house that had it written on it, but the lumberyard was so.
So
Yeah.
trying to get back to this list, did you have other recommendations?
Well,
Hey, Ron, I just
I was
don't
curious
think-
if any of you know anything about the building at 441 Main.
Hey, Ron, by the way, I think the 382 main has been painted purple, just so you know, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very purple.
382. Okay.
No, not 382.
Oh,
No, that's not 382.
That's the one he wanted.
That's
the one that
probably
was-
282. That's probably incorrectly addressed. It's across the street from Rocky Mountains Tacos. It's the one that's purple. And it is in
292 is the one that's been painted.
292. And if
oh,
it's in here,
292 was
Well, he
painted
said
purple?
382.
yeah, but,
It was just painted.
That's what he just said, though.
Yeah, okay.
Ron,
but
what was the one you were just asking about though?
The one I was
And
asking
here-
about is
I'm sorry.
the one I was asking about is 441. It's the building that doesn't have any entrance to it on Main Street, faces Main Street.
Oh,
there's no
that's the
entrance.
apartment building.
Is that what that was?
Oh, it is now.
There are apartments there?
Next to the Wings place
Right.
is what he's
Yes.
talking.
It has the
Didn't know there
assessor
were apartments
shows it
there.
having been built in
So,
Some history on that
1930.
building From somebody.
or, I mean, there's multiple people living in it
Ron, can I
with separate entrances. That's all I know.
Yeah, it is apartments. It is livable quarters, but I have some history on what that was. I'd like to highly suggest that we look at 458 Main, which is St. Patrick's Church, the original.
Yeah.
That's already on, I think that's already.
It's on here, but
It's
he
on the
doesn't-
list.
That's, you've already
Yeah.
chosen the top six. That's within the
Okay.
top six.
So
Yes.
that's
So
good.
Ron, if you have any more suggestions or
Well, the only other one I was going to ask about was somebody at the last meeting mentioned a residential looking building that they said was originally the hospital or was early on a doctor's
That's on
clinic.
Main. It's in the 200 block of Main Street.
272?
That's
Susan's house.
Is that 272 maybe?
Yes. And then next to it, 262 was the old Masonic Lodge.
262.
272 and 262.
Oh yeah, okay. I see which one that was.
262 probably has less change done to the outside than 272.
Yeah, I think the only thing that got added to 272 was the porch.
Porch, yeah, that's what I think too. And we know who did that, so we can find out for sure.
So Madison, if I can ask for some clarifications, 442 Main isn't in the packet. I'm wondering if.
Thank you.
Typo?
That was one of mine too.
442.
Just mean maybe 446?
Let me look. So I went off of so 442 Main was recommended by at least two people. That is the inn. Right next
The Minturn Inn, that wasn't in the packet because brought that up. Why wasn't it?
Yeah.
in there?
Oh, so it's not in the packet.
Yeah, we should look at that.
The hotel.
The Minturn Inn, yeah.
right next to Kirby's.
And then the other question I had was 165 Railroad.
That's the International Trade Center building.
Okay. And lastly, the 478 Main.
That
Sorry, it's not last.
is
Could have been 478 Eagle River.
let me look.
I didn't look at any, I don't have anything under 478 Main.
Maybe it could have been that was the address written down in the email, and so I put that in here. I tried to double check all the addresses because there were a couple that were off. That gave like a description next to it. I was just like, oh, I know what that number actually is. But yeah, it does not look like 478.
78 Eagle River.
Is that Woody's yellow house on Eagle River?
I show at 478, I have a log building that was expanded with
Oh.
wood frame. It's very funky looking, like kind of a 1970s. funky looking pop-up.
Oh, that's,
478
isn't that the one they're
E-
taking down?
It's the one on Eagle River. It's,
Yeah.
Tearing it down.
Okay.
I had a question on 484 Eagle and 441 Main. I didn't know which those were.
441 is the one next to Crazy Chicken.
Yeah,
That's
that's one,
the-
that's one
okay.
of the ones that he's
Commercial
recommending.
building
Okay,
And then for,
484 Eagle River,
is a little yellow house that has.
Yeah.
that's, Woody owns
the
that.
Perry style Woody's house. That's what I was wondering. Okay.
And then 1031 Main, is that Battle Mountain?
Yes, I believe so.
And I had a couple others that I had listed for the next 10 that didn't show up on the list. I'm wondering, so the compilation of this list,
So I gave y'all all of the votes on the first 10, and then I just gave you the next top 10 votes on the next 10.
okay, so there's just one for the next 10, then you include it.
Right, yeah. Because obviously that was a much more widespread net because you had,
Sure.
everybody had the whole town to pick from. So I had 42 different addresses between the 7 of you. So there weren't actually, there weren't actually a ton of actually top 10. But I can certainly get you that
No, no,
list
no,
if you would like.
that's totally right.
Alright.
I understand and I appreciate that. And then my other question is, you'd asked us to list if we wanted any of the currently designated ones and then the top 10. Is this list the top 10 or is this incorporating that?
It is incorporating the, if y'all wanted the,
If someone listed one of those
Right.
designated ones
Yes.
in their top 10,
Yes.
then it's included here.
it is.
Great. Thanks. for the
Which is why you'll see, obviously 151, 155 are in the saloon are within the top 6, but then you have the water tank and Myers Barn which fell very clearly out of the top 10.
Right.
Because those just weren't, those are town owned, so those were, I believe, not as high priority to get extra information on because nobody's gonna, or they will both eventually be town owned.
So, one other question. It really seems, like, I think the motivation for this committee was to, preserve the character of the town. And it does, as you were noting, it seems like the majority of these properties that are really significant are on Main Street and the vast majority in the 100 block, maybe some in the 200 block. There are a few others out there too. How feasible would it be to create a historic district that say just Main Street, the 100 block, or 100 and 200 block?
You're asking me about that?
Yeah.
I think a local district is doable because on the local level, you can set your own standard for how you want to address all the alterations that have taken place to the architecture. Getting a district established that's more like a state or national register district, the requirements for that are more stringent as far as architectural integrity goes. So if, for example, you could put together draw a boundary around the 100, 200 blocks, say, of Main Street, or even further down, whatever you'd like, and get the buildings documented, and that has to be submitted then to the state of Colorado, to History Colorado, for approval. And they're going to look at that, I'm afraid, and say, well, we're not sure about this because so many of these buildings have been altered in the past 50 years. That becomes real tricky when you're trying to get state or national designation for a district, especially with the amount of alteration I'm seeing in Minturn. But establishing a local district is very doable because you can look at the properties and say, well, okay, so we have a bunch of modified buildings, but we still think that the history is important and there's enough there that you can recognize that it's a historic building, and we're going to go ahead and establish a district. So that's doable on the local level.
Thank you.
What would be I guess, help us understand a little bit more about that as an option. Do you see that as a real serious viable option? If so, could you take us through just a sort of a overview of pros and cons or something? I mean, do other
So,
small towns like us do that?
sure. I mean, there are a lot of communities in Colorado that have historic districts established. Um, Many of the old mining towns and places that are now ski towns, but they originated in mining or ranching, have historic districts. Um, for a number of them, those are listed on the state or national register of historic places because the quality of the architecture was good enough that they could make that pass muster. It has to be, approved not only by staff at History Colorado, but then by the State Historic Preservation Review Board. And they look at these things really carefully to decide whether they agree or not that there's not only the historic rationale, which you could have, but the architectural integrity. That's where the concern is with Minturn. So if you were to establish a local district, it could be anything from something that's honorary in terms of those properties that are included in the district to something that has a little more regulatory control if you want. It also opens the door for the property owners within that district to apply for grant funding, but really specifically for the owners of commercial buildings to apply for grant funding from the state for restoration work. They would all automatically be eligible to apply for grant funds. It doesn't work for residential properties, but it does for commercial and publicly owned properties, and nonprofit owned properties. So, churches and community buildings and that sort of thing. Residential properties, I think, would be eligible for tax credits for work that they do on their homes that would be work that's done on the historic fabric of the building. For example, if somebody's trying to take the facade back to its original appearance or the exterior siding, or they need to do roof work, there's an opportunity there to apply for state and federal tax credits on work like that by property owners. It's complicated to do, but it's available. The last thing I'd add is it would allow the town to apply for grant funds that can be applied in the district as well for whatever, additional studies, like intensive level surveys or anything, or for, a facade restoration program could probably receive grant funding following the establishment of a district from the State Historical Fund. That would apply to a lot of properties along Main Street, especially the commercial ones.
So how does the commission feel about concentrating the next 4 on Main Street? And
I've been doing the district that doesn't, that means we can't continue identifying buildings throughout town too, can we not?
Oh yeah, of course. In
Yeah,
future,
I've been
Mhm.
reading a little bit, and I'm surprised we didn't do a district with our downtown. So yeah, I'd be for it. I'm looking into it anyhow.
so
That's something we can do
I will
separate
talk
from-
about the question of district
That's something,
designation
yes.
in the reconnaissance study. So that's some of the language I still need to add is discussion of potential for a historic district down in Minturn.
You said it was, Ron, you said it was doable. Is it something that, now that you've gotten to know Minturn a little bit more and you're getting more and more familiar with it, do you think it fits what we're trying to accomplish?
I don't know why it wouldn't.
Yeah.
It would allow you to, what you're essentially doing when you're setting up a district is you're landmarking all the buildings within that area in one fell swoop. But you do have to define between which ones are included in the district and which ones just happen to be located in the district but aren't part of the district officially. The distinguishing the language that we use is actually which buildings contribute to the district and which ones are not contributing to the district, even though they might be located within the boundaries. I'll give you a good example, which is you could draw the boundaries of a district and you have to establish a period of significance. What is the period of significance for this district that we're going to set up? Say it's going to run from 1885 to 1950. Okay. You might have some buildings, and you probably will, that are going to be located within those boundaries that might have been built in 1992 or 2007. So in the landmark designation for the district, it's a written document. You actually will list which buildings are contributing to the district because they're historic and are seen as significant for that district, and which ones are located within the boundaries but do not contribute to the district. And that way, the owners of those properties that do not contribute will not have to follow the rules of the district in terms of if you do any kind of special review of exterior remodeling or anything like that, they'd be exempted from that automatically because they're not contributing to the district. And that allays the concerns of property owners who have more recent buildings who are otherwise going to say, well, why the heck are we being included in a historic district? Our building was built in 2007. And that allows you to tell them, well, you're within the boundaries, but your property has been declared non-contributing. So you really don't have any special review or anything you need to be concerned about here.
Well, I think that would be helpful if your final report does provide some discussion about that option.
Sure.
And then, but so back to our current issue, we need to come up with the 4 additional ones to add to the list. And I think your suggestion was to stick to Main Street, and I'd be inclined to say let's stick to the 100 block just so that we're focusing on that area that's sort of the most strongly mentoring, unless someone has. That's my suggestion. If others,
I'd like to make one of those St. Patrick's.
St. Patrick's is already on the list.
Okay, but he's saying the next 4. Oh,
Yeah,
this is
because-
beyond the 10.
No.
no, we have 6 already established.
Oh, St. Patrick's is one of those 'cause it's in the
6.
top 6.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're just
Yeah.
trying to figure out the last 4 in the top 10.
Gotcha.
That's a really critical one. So I think you're right, but I think it's already in the list.
Like plan.
And if we look at, say, the ones that got 3 or 4 votes, the only one that wouldn't be in there is the big one on the corner, the 382. Magusta's, I feel like, has been so modified. I'm not sure we want to keep that in the group. The fly fishing shop and Eagle River Inn are sort of odd ones. They are so characterful for our town, but
My fishing shop's been totally redone on the outside.
Yeah.
but so it comes back to like, are they historically significant, or are they just providing the character that we're after preserving for the town?
Providing care.
Yeah.
And so those are really big characterful ones, but maybe not the most historically.
They're not historically accurate.
Holy Toledo is another former church, which I think puts it up the list. And then the Gamble store and the Williams Motel are kind of anchoring pieces on that main street.
And Gamble's was 2 buildings or 2 stores originally, wasn't it? The
Yes.
post office and something else.
There's the connection between them.
It was eventually put together, but originally it was 2 buildings. Considered 2 separate.
So does anyone want to endorse any of those options, or?
I definitely Holy Toledo, and I'd go for Gamble's too. Holy Toledo, and Kelly knows this, and I found this out through Terry Pearson and Billie Jean. We have discovered for sure there's a time capsule buried on that property.
Huh? Where?
Well, that's the problem. It's either in front of the window or under the tree. And what I found out is it wasn't anything metal. It was a 5-gallon paint bucket.
Oh no.
So that's going to be a little hard. And of course, that wasn't put there until sometime much later. like sixties or seventies or eighties.
I,
It was when-
I did a quick just drilling a foot down in front of the window, and I didn't come up with anything.
Somebody else told me they thought it was on by the tree. So you have two options there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, everybody that I talk to, I'm gonna see who knows.
And I went about 5 feet out with a drill bit and tried to see if it
And a
I hit
lot,
anything besides a rock.
one of those people, one of Ella's doctor, I can't remember his name, are still members of that church, which is now in Avon. And so Terry was going to try to ask around a little bit and see if any of them remembered
Okay.
that day.
Okay, in efforts to try and keep
On task.
some kind of, not necessarily on task, just some kind of record keeping. I have 2 votes for Holy Toledo. Does anybody else want to throw their hat in the ring for Holy Toledo?
Can you tell me the address again?
Oh, that's 192 Main.
91.
Or I'm sorry, yes,
Toledo
191.
clothing store?
Yeah, right. I just
Oh, the address.
Yes, 191.
191.
Yes.
Okay, Ken. Anybody else?
It's 192.
That's across the street. That's the
Okay,
Bell.
so I gotta get a little more organized here.
I like the idea of focusing on Maine, and I like the idea of, focusing on that downtown area. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that we could learn through the intensives. That's really what we're talking about here. We're not actually designating them. We're asking them to do the intensive. So for example, although I put fly fishing and Eagle River in because they're so important from a character perspective, I don't know that Ron would necessarily, that we'd want to do an intensive on those because those really don't have, I mean, I guess we could on the Eagle River Inn, but the fly shop is, I'm not sure what that building was or if there's anything left of that building. So I'm thinking of it through a lens of intensive, and doing an intensive on our downtown historic district would, or these kind of properties, I think would be really great. I like that focus from my
Like-
perspective.
Is that
Get the gamble store.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do Gamble's too.
122?
22, and then
I agree. I wouldn't do Magusto's because it's too new.
and the Williams Motel 102.
Well, I mean, it hasn't changed shape a whole lot.
Alpine Kinds were done.
I suspect that building, Williams Motel, is going to hold a lot of interesting history to it.
That's one of the things I like about 101 is that there was a lot of action and probably more stuff written about it if something happened.
Yep.
You're talking about Magusto's or the Williams Motel?
Williams Cafe, yeah.
I think there was a dance hall in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, so I'm thinking if there's any information to be had,
may
it
have
might
a
be
lot-
there,
Yeah, it may have a lot of history.
even though it doesn't look, the shape of the building is similar. It's just been,
The windows are replaced and things like that.
yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Could also,
definitely-
yeah.
You guys,
the
you
motel,
received
too.
the first 2 properties I documented, right? Oh no, never mind. I'm thinking about something else.
Oh,
Thinking
no.
about a totally different project. Never mind. That I just turned into intensive level forms on. Never mind.
Okay, so I have 3 votes for Holy Toledo. Ken, Lynn, Robert. Does anybody else want Holy Toledo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
6. You just jumped.
Problem is I like them all.
And then I would propose Gamble's.
Yeah.
Okay, so I now have 3 votes for Gambles. Ken, Robert, Lynn. Anybody else for Gamble?
And that's 120.
Yeah,
Kelly, okay.
That 122.
Yes.
I like it has, the false front and all that, which is most of the downtown had that at one point here in Redcliffe.
I think the Williams Motel may also have a lot of history to be had. I think Ella's questions.
Thanks.
That was one that,
Both Williams Motel, and that's probably going to include a lot of history about the Williams family and cafe, et cetera. But I don't know if I'd want to include Magustos. I mean, it's just me, but maybe others disagree, but I would propose the Williams Motel maybe as a third.
I agree with that one. I think there's a lot of history in that building.
Yeah, that's 102.
Okay, so I have 2 votes for Williams Motel. Would anybody else like to do this? Okay,
That's 102.
that's 102.
I'm numerically challenged on.
No, you're good.
I'd like to
More
say-
by names than the numbers.
Let's do this. So how many more do we need? How about 245 Main? Is anybody?
245 Main.
That's the little purple Victorian.
Oh, yeah, that is a cute one.
At least, I
That's-
mean, at least it's
I think
really
there
cool.
are a bunch of those cute little ones. It's just a question of, do we want to keep our focus on the 100 block?
Well, that's why I'm saying Frank's
I
house too. It's got the false front yet, and there's a lot of family history there. Because that was Darla too. That Darla lived there, didn't she? Well, she lived at the.
So Ron, in your opinion, what should be the criteria for this list? Is it
Good.
what
question.
happened on, I mean, when we formed this thing many years ago, we said if something significant happened on the property, if someone famous, in our idea of famous, if someone famous lived there, or if it looks appropriately cute and worth saving. But what is the hierarchy to make the list in your opinion?
Let me throw out a couple of thoughts on that. A couple of ways to approach it. One way is to look at the building stock and say, okay, on Main Street, what are the 10 oldest buildings based upon the county assessor's date of construction? And just tackle the 10 oldest buildings on Main Street. That's one way to do it, because those are supposedly the earliest buildings that are still standing along Main Street. So that's one way to do it. Another, in some communities, they look at it and say, well, what are the 10 most threatened properties that are
What was that?
the 10 most threatened properties? Properties that are being considered for redevelopment or to be demolished or whatever. That's another way to consider it. The one you mentioned, what are the 10 most interesting potentially interesting most properties because of what we happen to know right now. And, we're going to do a deep dive and find out if what we know is correct or not, and if there's more to add to that. These are the kinds of ways or you could just say, we're only going to deal with the 100 block and that's it, nothing outside of that. And let's pick 10 from the 100 block. And in the future, we'll move on to the 200 block or the 300 block. Those are different ways of structuring an intensive level survey.
Ron, I'm getting from you though.
1897.
Is there another one too? That is like, which of these buildings are likely to have a real rich history? Because we don't have history written about Minturn as you started out talking.
Yeah.
And it makes me think like Holy Toledo, Gamble's, Williams Motel, those are probably all going to, at least the last two are going to have rich history. And it makes me think about something like the Eagle River Inn, that used to be the railroad, inn. And what would we learn about the history there that could be really rich? I know it's.
And the YMCA building.
Yeah, and the YMCA building. I'm thinking that our lens is where could we really learn a lot about the town?
Mhm.
It sounds like you're like you're a detective and you're actually going to root all this out. And so I would encourage us to consider some of these downtown. That's why I like the focus that Robert suggested of the 100 block, because if we could really get the history of that's where it all started.
Exactly.
And so who are the players that we need to, which are the properties we need to select to be able to understand that story?
Right. Yeah. That's the approach I would take, is focus on the 100 block And you can extend across the river, obviously, as you have, to the saloon.
Yeah, or the saloon could be another one.
You have that on the list.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we already have that.
That's
Yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah. So the Eagle River Inn, though, I think is an important one.
I think it is too, just because I think it's just was so critical to the town in the early days and probably has a very, very rich history.
And it
Absolutely.
dates way back.
Yeah.
Hundreds.
And
I would
even though it's been remodeled,
to,
the form of it is still there, even though it's been remodeled.
yeah.
So
Does anyone else support that idea?
I do. I also, I like that because to set up a district. But my only concern is that there's like endangered buildings further south. And so, that kind of makes an urgency to protect that stuff or designate stuff outside the 100 block. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there too, even though I'm in favor of the 100 block. I also like the idea of combining, like, since we can't really designate everything, looking at not just the stories, but also with that, what did you call it? The charactery? But
Criteria.
didn't you say charactery?
Yeah,
Like
sure.
he had an adjective I never heard before. Like kind of not just going by like stories, but kind of merging also the character, as much as we can get both of those criteria in there. Just because character is important. So,
Okay, so at this point, I have 5 votes for Holy Toledo, 5 votes for Gambles, 6 votes for Eagle River Inn, 3 votes for Williams Motel, and 1 apiece for Magusto's, Frank's, and 245 Main. So I have 3 very strong contenders for the last 4 spots, and then 1 that has about 3 or about half of the commission voting for it, or a little less than half. So is there more support for Williams Motel to kind of bump that up, or does somebody want to propose a different one with which to kind of
Where's
that last?
This isn't on there.
Franks has 1 vote at this point.
I don't like Magusto's. That's just me though. I can live with it. I just don't think the style is really.
See, I think Magusto's has more of the character than Alpine kind. Because I know when that was redone. And that was since I've lived here in 1983 is when I moved here. Or right around that time is when it was redone. Where I think Magusto's has the character and the history.
So are you voting for Magusto's?
I'm voting for Magusto's.
Okay, that makes 2 votes for Magusto.
And I think to me, it's very important because it's literally like it's not the first building, but it's the second building you see making that turn. And like, if you're talking about trying to save something and something's endangered, like I would hate to see a Riverwalk building there
We'll say
Right,
that
that'll be-
versus what it is. And I'd love if it was fixed up better, but
I will say that the structure that is there is likely never going to be torn down.
And that's where I was gonna go.
It is entirely, it is over property lines, it is within the CDOT right of way. If the building is torn down, you will never be able to build anything to any similar scale. So if you're worried.
it's not
about-
endangered.
If you're worried about saving it, I do not believe that structure is.
That's good info.
Obviously, anybody can come in and do what they like with their property, but they will never be able to build, they will be able
They
to
won't
maybe
be able to
build
build.
half that footprint.
Okay.
Or I think that gives us the opportunity of possibly saving it, giving it to be historical, and them possibly getting, depending on what they want to do, money to fix it up.
So do you want to just throw out a vote for Magusto's versus Williams? It seems like those are the 2 that are.
Sure, so kind of clean slate. Ken, Williams Motel or Magusto's? You don't have to vote for either one,
Williams
but right now
Motel.
this is Williams, okay. Kelly, Williams Motel or Magusto's?
I'd probably go with the hotel.
Okay. Dan, Williams Motel and Magustos.
Let's stay with the hotel.
Hotel, okay. Tammy,
Magustos.
okay.
Magustos.
Tracy,
I'm gonna go with the motel because Magustos is gonna be there, so.
okay. Williams Motel, okay. Williams Motel wins out.
And it's not to say that we aren't gonna come back to Magustos and these other ones down the road. I mean,
Mhm.
they're all of these are so worthwhile. It's like we're definitely
So at this point, we have Eagle River Inn, Williams Motel, Gambles, and Holy Toledo with either 6 or 5 votes. Or
so have we missed anything
Five
that someone
votes.
wants to throw out there as an alternative to one of those 4 that you really think we've missed the boat on? And the 2 that I can think of are the Masonic and the old hospital.
They're not the 100 block.
They're not 100 block. Right.
I know. I'd love to learn more about those too.
I mean, the survey area is all of Old Town. So you do not have to limit it to the 100 block. That is a self-imposed limitation. I will point out.
Well,
But
if you're talking district, he's recommending.
And I did talk to Lynn 2 weeks ago a little bit about the Masonic Lodge because he was a member, and it was interesting when it moved. He was pissed off at. There was a lot of
History.
stories about it when it moved to Leadville, and Lynn was not in favor of it, but he was a Mason and he was a member of it.
The Sun Lodge.
So he does have a lot of info on it, and the Masonic Lodge in Leadville probably has even more information on it.
And Ellis still belongs to the Evening Stars, which was the wives of the members of the Masonic Lodge.
Okay. Well, if there are any strong feelings, then I think we've picked the 4. Does everyone feel
is
good?
everyone okay with those taking the last 4 slots?
I'm good.
Okay.
Great.
Madison,
Yes.
for my sake, do you mind reading those back to me a little more slowly so I can capture them?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Start with the address.
So,
I got the Eagle River Inn at 145 North Main.
yes, 191 Main Street, Holy Toledo. Gambles, which is at 122 Main Street.
Okay.
And 123, I think it's listed in here.
Eagle County Assessor Site, I believe. Just
It's all under one.
okay, so and then Williams Motel, which is the 102 Main Street.
102.
What was the
yes.
first one again? Sorry that you read.
Eagle River.
Eagle River Inn.
Oh, right.
145 North Main Street.
Okay.
Let's see. Holy Toledo is
191 Main.
191. There we go.
It used to be a church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I've been to it.
Yeah.
I went inside and everything. I took a look at the interior also.
And just for your knowledge, Ron,
Yeah.
the Eagle River Inn was owned by Richard Galloway. His nickname is Old Dog, and he is still alive.
Okay.
He owned it for many years prior to this current owners. If he might have some info.
Okay. I know they've done a bunch of research on that building, or at least they've collected materials about it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, there'll be a lot written about that, I would think.
Yes, and what we're going to do is we're going to drill down and get a lot more information pinned down about it.
I can't wait to read this write-up you're putting together. I have to say, I'm kind of excited about it.
I would love to find. I've never figured out where Buko's house was. Do you know anything about that, Ron?
I don't know if it still
I
exists.
think I was going to suggest we switch.
He is buried in Edwards. I've been to his grave, and they're cleaning up the cemetery right now.
the landmark.
But
Well, it depends on which Buko you're talking about, because it was a big family.
yeah, the founder. Well,
I don't know if he wants to stick around.
from what I heard, it was the Nelsons and them, and one had a faster horse, and the other one had more money. And those were our 2 founding families that kind of bought up the land and founded Minturn, from my
Actually,
understanding.
George Buko, who owned what is now most of Main Street, is actually not buried in Colorado. He's buried in Oregon. He died in 1919,
Okay.
and at a sanatorium in Oregon. He developed stomach cancer, and he and his wife left Colorado in 1909 and moved up to Corvallis, Oregon,
Okay.
and they
Well,
never
one of
came
them's
back
buried
to
in
Colorado.
Edwards, I know.
Yeah, there will be some other because there. You know what happened? The parents, William and I forget her name. The couple, William and Margaret Bucco. They brought their family out to Leadville in 1879. They were from Indiana, and the father and all the boys went to work as miners in Leadville, and then they moved down, up over Tennessee Pass and down into the Eagle River Valley. And they initially stopped in what became Minturn, but then several of them moved on and ended up in Wolcott and McCoy and Steamboat Springs. George was the one who stayed in Minturn, but he and his wife left in 1909 and moved to Oregon. So whoever's buried in Edwards, there were a bunch of Buccos around because it was a family of 12 children. And a bunch of them, like I said, ended up in Wolcott and McCoy and all.
All over the place.
So I don't know who's buried in Edwards, but would not be surprising if there are Buccos buried in a number of cemeteries in the area. But George is not there. He and his wife are buried in Oregon.
So I think if we can move on to the next subject, I was going to make a suggestion that while we have you with us, Ron, I'm not sure you're going to stay for the whole meeting, but the landmark discussion for non-building designations might be helpful to have you with us to discuss that.
You kind of went in and out. The landmark discussion for what?
I was the next item on our list is ideas to encourage historic preservation, but I'd like to move forward the landmark discussion about non-building designations, as long as we have you on with us.
Not non-building, Ron, so like railroad relics, trestle, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so resources other than buildings.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I understand now.
Saw the puzzled look on your face.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that meant.
Yeah.
So
But I'm
does
with you.
anyone have any recommendations about items which we ought to include for discussion about non-building designations? We currently have the water tower is already designated.
Well, I mean, I personally love the trestle now that that's in town property, and I know the caretaker is extremely excited about trying to preserve it on their property. And I also think I don't know what you call it, the railroad yard tower is one of the only railroad objects that we have left of the rail yard, which I think is extremely significant. I wish we had the water towers, and then we only have the foundation of the ice house, but like what do you do if the foundation, but at least there's a foundation left to one of the more important ice houses that existed because of the lettuce fields and Camp Hale it's connected to, and it's kind of significant. But it's like so much, the whole roundhouse is gone, but the site itself was so important to our town.
That's on railroad property though, isn't it?
I mean, the reason why we're here is because of the railroad.
Boundary zone.
Are you talking about just getting into the history of it or trying to save it and market it?
It was a topic that was added to future agenda items, and so we're just discussing this agenda item.
No, I mean, when you're talking about the ice house, Kelly, are you talking about trying to save it and mark it historical, or just try to do more history study on it?
I don't know. That's why I'm just bringing it up. Like, they're not houses, but I think they're very significant to the history of this town as structures and things that people, want to see or like, if they were gone, would we miss them? I guess Ron mentioned before. A lot of people don't even know the Ice House Foundation is still there, but I love the light tower for the railroad and the trestle, the aqueduct, I guess.
I'd add one more too, and I agree with all those. And just as potentials, right? That's what we're talking about. We're not nominating anything tonight.
Right.
But the two trees in front of 155 and 151, those cottonwoods are majestic, and God, it would be a shame if those were cut down.
Along the same lines, there are 4 or 5 trees around 301 Main Street, across from Rocky Taco,
Yeah, those ones
that are fabulous, shade trees in town.
Ron, do you see other historic preservation groups looking at like some of these historic relics that aren't
Bobby's house,
structured? They're structures, obviously. They're either trees, the Ice House Foundation, railroad tower. Just to take these examples.
Frank's car.
Frank's car would be another one.
Yeah. So absolutely.
This just doesn't fall.
Anything, that's an engineered structure, bridges or trestles are good examples, rail beds. There are all kinds of engineered structures out there that can be landmarked and are landmarked frequently. Anything designed, anything built that is not a building, as you said, but are historic structures are frequently looked at. I would throw out to you also, not only do you have that big tower along the rail corridor, but you also have 3 signals that are still standing there.
Yeah,
the signals.
Yeah, and the signals are also historic features. And they also tell you that you're in the presence of a rail crossing. So I would encourage you to consider those as well. I did take a look at them when I went there, and I photographed them. There's also a signal shed that's standing there near those signals. Another one is that Rex signal that's on Pine Street in the backyard of somebody's house.
Well, we also have the one that's down by Little Beach that says Minturn on it, which throughout the years I've fought graffiti and we've cleaned it up. The little shed, signal shed, or I don't know the correct term for it, but it actually says Minturn on it. So that little tiny 8-by-8-foot metal building, like I'm in love with that one. And
what about the railroad cars in front of the Gustos? They weren't here, but they came out of the mine.
From the mine.
Those, which Janet was with Tim, somehow they got those. And somewhere there's a great big bell.
I've never seen
that was sitting in this room for years.
Hmm.
And Michelle might be the one who would know about that.
Maybe, or Jay, I'm sure would also know.
There's a big bell that came out of one of the mines.
Huh, okay.
That was given to us, what we did with it. And we have that also.
Right, yes, we have the one.
And perhaps a survey of the railroad corridor through town may show up some other items, but I think grouping together all the rail equipment or structure signals.
I
know the wood parts for the crossing, they were rotten. I was going to save them, and then someone threw them away, I'm guessing, because they were rotten, but I'd love to rebuild that and put the wooden red and white arms back up, just to be cute.
I was going to just interject that I did do a study for Avon a number of years ago of the rail corridor, of the Denver Rio Grande rail corridor through the entire Avon area, because they wanted to get a handle on what they have there that relates to the railroad history. Now, the other question that relates to that is who owns all those features? Because from my understanding, it's still all owned by one of the rail companies. I don't know if it's the Union Pacific or
yeah, it's Union Pacific.
Union Pacific.
So they tore down the train station that I'm guessing was built in the 50s, and I'm guessing there was no discussion on it. It just came down one day.
Well, up until 3 years ago, nobody had to have discussion about anything
Yeah.
coming down. You just had to pull it down from it.
yeah, so,
But you're right, there, it is all owned by Union Pacific.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well,
That
I
doesn't
just-
mean you can't document it and get it, get a good sense of what there is there, the whole entire length of the rail corridor through town. But
Right.
and there is.
Ron, was that a Vanderbilt or railroad? Who owned that railroad back in the day? Did Vanderbilt, like, did he
No.
get,
no,
because I know
it was,
he ate up a lot of,
there were a
Local.
lot of people involved in that. I mean, the first construction was the Transcontinental Railroad by the Union Pacific. So, the folks that were involved with that it was not Vanderbilt's. My mind is going blank right now. I know the Ames brothers out of Boston were involved with it. There was kind of a conglomeration of various interests that were put to work building that by the federal government.
So any other items that people like to think should be considered for landmarking that are not buildings?
You did ask about trees.
Pardon me?
Yeah,
You
we
asked
did.
about trees. That's a good question. Certainly historic designed landscapes are eligible for landmarking. If you have a landscape architect that put a park designed a park, say back in the 1920s, that would be eligible for landmark designation. But trees that are standing in a residential front yard, it's more difficult to justify that as a historic resource.
So that might be better controlled with a town code around removing trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's maybe something which we should encourage to the.
Currently, the removal of trees, the only time the town gets involved is if those trees are within the 30-foot river setback, or if you are taking down trees and not replanting new with which to keep your minimum required amount of trees on your lot.
And then there also is a problem with the cottonwoods because once they get so big, they're weak.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
they come down on people. So they have to kind of be made.
pruned.
It can be,
Yeah.
they can be managed, but it sounds like that's something maybe we could encourage the town council to consider a code around large significant trees. Okay, well, I think that covered that item, and then why don't we go back to what we skipped over, the
Do we need
We don't
Sorry.
move on.
Ron?
yeah, Ron, we really appreciate all of your time. You're welcome to stick around, but don't feel like you need to
Okay. I'm gonna go get dinner. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Thanks again.
Enjoy.
I'll be in touch in the coming weeks with Madison as I wrap up this next greatly expanded draft of the reconnaissance report. I know you're going to be really pleased with it. I think you'll have a really enjoyable time reading through the history that I've pulled together, and it's going to be a lot more informative than the previous draft was, with a lot more analysis and historical narrative and everything. So it's coming together nicely.
Well, thank you very much for your contributions, and we really appreciate your input.
You bet, and thanks for your patience with this. It's just a very time-consuming effort to get this all done, but I want to do it just right for you.
Thank you, Ron.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Ron.
Okay,
Happy
I'll be back in touch.
Thanksgiving.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too. Stay well.
Bye.
Okay, so the next item is the topic of ways to encourage historic preservation in Minturn. So
You have a hand waving in the air.
to brainstorm that, shall we start with Lynn?
Way back when Tracy mentioned possibly trying to get some articles in the paper, I believe it was you. I'm so happy about this, it put me in tears. I had, since 2000, I owned this Victorian and I sold it a year ago. That's part of my retirement. However, this was in the Salida Luna Vista News. I'm giving you all copies because this is an amazingly well-written article about why to save old homes. And I just passed on down. I brought everybody copies.
Wow.
Madison too.
Thank you.
It gives such a positive look at doing it. And I thought you guys, this house is started in 1882. The land was sold for $100. It's a 10,000 square foot lot for $100. In 1885, the house was built for about 500, and around 1900, it was sold for 1,000. It is still there. It has still got a brick foundation, and explains why that's good. The people who bought it not only made it historical, they're supporting the foundation, they're keeping the old wood for the floors, but going underneath and supporting it and turning it into a restaurant. And behind this house is a small, what you would call a cottage house. It was built in 1934. So that could be your ADU, that could be your chef's house, your manager, whatever. But I was so happy to see this article. My broker sent it to me because this was just recently, this fall. Yeah, the article. They bought it a year ago and started working on it. But I thought by reading it, it could give everybody some ideas of what we maybe could come up with to ask the paper to put in the paper. And maybe they could come out and take a picture of a couple of houses and saying, Minturn's going historical, or we're working on it, or something like that. But I thought it was very positive in its attitude, and so I brought you all a copy. Thank you.
That was so nice of you. Thank you.
Hey, Madison, if you wouldn't mind, could you scan that and send it to me?
Yes, I will. Yeah, this is small enough. I can scan and send it to you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Like something I really want to read. I
I
had a comment under this discussion item that I wanted to make. I was thinking more and more, they talk about how to encourage historic preservation. And I keep thinking that maybe what we really need to be doing is to encourage the celebration of the history of Minturn. And it's a different approach, but I was really touched by the way Ron started out today, saying there's really nothing truly written about the history of Minturn. There's not much understanding of the history of Minturn. Maybe one of the roles that we could play that could encourage this is to make the history of Minturn a source of pride for the community. By sharing it, as we get this information, how can we turn that around and share it? And Lynn just gave an example of an article that was really well written, but maybe there's articles, maybe there's booths at farmers markets, maybe there's other things that we can do and maybe the town starts to realize, wow, I actually live in a town that's got a lot of history. That's a source of pride. And then people start to care about historic preservation, rather than trying to push, hey, you should preserve your house. You should preserve your house. And so I just wanted to share that thought. It's probably not a new thought. Maybe it's just a new thought for me, but I wanted to share it.
Well, it's a way to turn it into a positive. And I do think if Ron comes up with a bunch of information that we haven't had, that was written a long time ago, and just, and if we could publish that out and get it out there and get people excited about living in an old town, where right now they know they're in an old town, but they don't know anything about it. And so I'm excited to see what he can find on that.
Can I just let me just, sure. No, go
I
ahead.
just want to say the color of this house, I have done some investigation, and I have a colored card from Leadville of the historical colors of that era. They painted it this color. This was not the color that it was when I had it, nor the color when I bought it. This is this is a historical color that was used back in the 1800s. So I thought that was interesting too. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I like that idea, Ken. And I like that little Minturn kind of newspaper letter that goes out on email. Like once a month?
Yeah, once a month.
And I read all of it. And I think you could, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of little snippets of different pieces of Minturn history that I'm excited also for Ron. And maybe we could just take one thing, and make it kind of just a couple paragraphs and really kind of exciting, jazz it up, and not even maybe call it that, because some people would just be like, ugh. But maybe just, have a little corner of just one of many things, but just have that in is it Cindy's newsletter? It is. Cause that newsletter is great. And to have one more thing,
Be
might
like,
just-
did you know? Did you know?
did
And
you know,
then,
I like that because
Be a
like
little
history
did you know
that
section.
word can sometimes turn off people because they didn't like history when they were in high school and it was hard, right? So, but right, it's all about the teacher.
Absolutely.
But like if you could say, did you know, like, and just do a little snippet, so much so that they can't wait to get the next month and learn the next little piece. But that could just be one of like other things, like I like, this and more in-depth things, but that might be just a fun way to get it out to the masses. Like, do you know what how many people receive that?
We have, I think, 690 subscribers roughly.
Because that's more than the town, like the dwellings in the town, I would imagine, right?
For the dwellings, our
Yeah.
population is roughly 1,100, so it's not the
Okay,
and we have, business owners who subscribe, obviously, who don't live in town. They have businesses here, and we even have, tourists who are also subscribed because they came in and they saw we were doing something and they signed up. So it's not just Minturn locals, but it is primarily people who live in this town.
but anyway, I like your idea.
I think too, that it ties into the next item on our list, the professionally displaying our inventory. That by celebrating buildings with a plaque that's prominent, but I think also maybe kind of like how we have that little map discussion in front of the
Yes.
Williams Motel.
Yeah,
Expand on that with like there's a historic walk. You could walk through town.
He's working on a pamphlet that we can attach to that.
But yeah, if there was
Take a walk.
yeah, and even a more developed signboard that has a lot of information there and helps people to find places.
And in regards, you had asked me at the last meeting who was considering putting some of our stuff in. It's Marco. And he does have some of it. He hasn't put it up yet. I know he's been out of the country for a little
Yeah.
while. But he's going to have the large poster, not this size, but the one size down until they're gone. The smaller
great.
posters, some of the individuals, a few of them. And then the Minturn book, which we're down to about, I think I have 18 or 20 copies left, and that's it, unless we can talk to the family about getting it reprinted if we're in trouble. And he's got the Bridges of Eagle County, a few books also. So hopefully this winter, he wants to frame one of the posters to put it up in there, and then he'll have some of them for sale. That money will come either to us or the senior citizens or whoever it belongs to. It will, and the poster money goes to the town. So that'll be good.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's great. I've seen some towns too, they'll have the little QSR codes. I mean, I think a plaque's much.
We've got that there too.
More,
We had that from the booth I had in the market, and
Yeah.
Cindy redid it, and we put a few words on, and we gave a copy in a plastic easel for Marco to put in the store
Yeah,
For donations,
great.
for
right?
donations. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would add on this idea of ways to encourage historic preservation is that we've got the Myers Barn project will be happening this summer. And I think that could be a platform for us, and hopefully by then we'll have some of these stories. And, we didn't, Kelly and I talked about this a lot. One of the reasons I didn't put it on the list as a top 10 was because I don't think that he's going to find much about a horse barn, and I don't want to have him spending a bunch of time looking in newspapers to see if there's anything written about the horse barn. But we do need to craft that history, Kelly, and if we can do that, we have the funds to put a plaque on that building in addition to whatever HPC does to tell the story of the Myers Barn. But more than that, we really should use it as an opportunity. And I've talked about it at our board meeting for the Minturn Community Foundation, Minturn Community Fund, which we had last month. And we talked about collaborating with HPC and trying to really use that as a platform to celebrate the history of Minturn. That thing is going to be very noticeable in town, if you, at least for people that go to the concert or go in that part of town. And you're going to see log structures going up. It's going to be quite a sight. And we should be able to get some press with the Vail Daily, et cetera. So maybe that we could look at that as our jumping off point to start talking about, things in the newsletter. By then we should have enough information from this research project that Ron's doing, that we should have something to talk about and start to share the story of Minturn.
That's a great opportunity. That will be a great opportunity.
Yeah, so I didn't have anything else on any of that.
Should we move on to the next item, the topic of professionally displaying the town's inventory? Any ideas or comments around that?
Right to the buildings that we've already designated, or just
I'm not sure what the,
So like Robert just brought up, when I was, I believe the topic when this was added to future agenda items, and what I kind of had in mind when I was writing the memo, which I apologize, was very brief, going into the packet, was something more like, a pamphlet or a more informational sign that can help direct people to around the town's inventory, giving more detailed in one place rather than having to talk to the individual property owners about hey, the saloon's designated, but maybe it's outside business hours, so they're not there to actually discuss their historicalness. So that's kind of what I had in mind. Something to kind of plan for 2026 potentially to draft, especially once we have the 10 intensive level surveys. If there are any nominations that come out of it, obviously we don't necessarily want to put together a professional display that is then immediately out of date because we've decided to add 5 new designations. So not saying that we're going to designate, go through and automatically designate things off of the intensive level survey. But if that's something the property owners are interested in, we certainly want to make sure that we're coordinating efforts to try and keep the information as current as long as possible, because Cindy has to update that map outside of 102 Main Street every time a business changes over, and that does get kind of expensive, having to reprint those signs. So and then I couldn't even imagine adding, I assume, entire new sections each time a structure is added to it. So
Cindy and I have talked about helping to put together a walking map that attaches to that pole, that people could pull a pamphlet and walk through town.
okay.
But what if there are like little loose site things you could mount on the wall? Like when you go to the different stores and things and you pull flyers out of what's going on.
Oh yeah.
And it could be a detailed project, but what if we just had single cards that at each property that was mounted in the hall, and you had those cards printed that told you about that building? Like you're saying, if it's closed, they can't, but they could pull it out and read it.
We
I
would
don't know
likely,
how complex that gets.
we'd likely want to have that all in a central location rather than have that scattered throughout.
each building might have its own plaque that has.
Yes.
but-
Well, right now, I'm not sure if you've seen Eagle will have a QR code on in the window of some of the buildings, and you can get more information by scanning the QR code.
That's what
Which
we
I
should-
think is fine for commercial properties. They're probably more they would
Yeah.
Want their house.
people who have residential
But you could have it on the outside of a fence.
But on Kelly Soon's house.
of having QR codes on their house. Just
But it could be cool on the sidewalk, on the fence.
No.
Little brass.
On the fence.
I'm on the fence now.
and since it has been brought up, a couple of people have referenced it. I would like to formally apologize that it's taken so long to really get plaques started.
Lynn has been very gracious and done a lot of research with a company in Pennsylvania that is much cheaper than what we had previously been looking at, and I believe will be very helpful in finally placing the orders for the rest of the plaques that we need. It keeps falling to the bottom of my priority list, given everything else that goes on in this town. So I know it's
Welcome to Minturn.
since y'all finalized a design. So again, I would like to apologize, but we should hopefully have orders placed soon and start seeing those come in.
What question, Madison, on that point? Since Ron is about to give us this stuff, and then we're going to be doing deep dives in January. I wonder, I don't remember how much detail is going to be on these plaques. Or is there any possibility that we should wait?
Well, the plaque itself is specific to the property. So if there are more properties that come online or designated or however you want to say, they will obviously get their own plaques. So I'm not, I don't believe.
Like, for example, the saloon.
Have information.
No, it has year built. It has what it's called. It has, I believe, Minturn HPC, designated. But it does not go into super detail that would be affected by the results of the survey.
Yeah. When you go to Idaho Springs, they have a lot on their plaques, but the problem is when you order these, every line you put on there costs makes it go up in price. And if we can just get it started, we can always add a second plaque with more information later.
Or a QSR code if it's like the saloon or something, that would be perfect. And then you have a detailed story, and if it,
or it's in a pamphlet.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be. I think the plaque should be kept pretty simple with dates and a name. And
well, that will be my big winter project.
What we may want to do though is have a format. If the property owner wants to provide a more detailed plaque, I think it should be standardized, kind of, so that
recognizable,
very consistent throughout town.
Right.
And maybe the individual property owner would be like, "Oh, I want to have the information there." So
because I believe when we were originally discussing plaques, however long ago, Michelle, the town manager at the time, committed the town to purchasing the kind of the basic plaque with the date and just the basic information, but we would certainly work with the property owner to design something in that same fashion, but we don't necessarily have the funds to do the much more extensive.
Yeah, that's
understandable. Yeah,
we get it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else on that subject?
Well, because I think, like, I know my house is, meets the age criteria, and if we had a company that was doing it and it had a design, like I would totally buy one for my house. And I don't know if we would get a group discount if we could encourage more people to buy them, which would be worth asking.
Yeah.
And then put that in the newsletter, seeing if it would be something people would be involved into, because
would it go on a house?
The more you see it, then it gets kind of snowballing and gets people excited about it.
And yours can be simple. It just has to have a year and the date it's built. It doesn't say it has to be registered.
Currently, I have one by my front door that says on this date in 1850, nothing happened. It's out of brass. Nothing significant happened.
It was real interesting. When I owned this house after a number of years, the Chaffey County sent me a request that they could do a survey, and they surveyed 65 properties in Chaffey County. And this house was one of the oldest. And they sent me like a 2 or 3 page letter that gives reference to each one of the houses they had. And I have the history on this house from the day it was born to the day I bought it. It was born to the day I bought it. Which I think is really amazing that they were able to do that on all these properties. I mean, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I
wish our county would just do that for us. And then I also have a side note on that page 36 of Ron's thing, the little shed at 446, the little purple house. my client is working,
6 Main Street.
Pine Street.
Pine Street.
So,
There was mention of it, they're kind of cleaning up the house because the lady's moving up to Ella's, right?
yeah, it's Phyllis is moving into.
Yeah, so they were approaching me about asking me about what it takes to remove something, and I haven't had time to go in it with them, but there might be a possible moving shed, and I'm not sure if it's an actual house or shed or what
It's built as a shed for storage.
it was. So I know it made it on this list, this being old. I don't know how old and a mass.
Bill is there when you talked about it?
No, it was just Brian Noland that I work with now. So, but his wife is working. His wife is working with her, and
You need to talk to Phyllis.
so anyways, we haven't had time to discuss it, but it might be something in next year's discussion that whether preserving it or moving it or something
Move it over with the,
possible. I told him you can't just tear anything down. It might be a process, but we're also trying to either recycle the material. I was asked if I wanted to recycle the material, and I propose that we try to save it. So it might be something for next year.
great.
Hey, Kelly, if you think of it, will you send me a picture of it?
It's on page 36
Oh, it is. Okay.
at the top. It's
Of the report, not of the packet.
Right.
Packet's 2 pages long.
and I think the building, used to be a laundromat, I heard. One
That one.
It's 446.
purple one.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
That's the tough,
We've had several laundromats throughout the years, I guess. And that's about all I know at this point.
So Dan and Tammy
Yes.
do not have lists which we've been referring to all night. Is there any chance we can get them a copy?
I have it.
You have it?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay.
I just didn't, I agree, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, sorry.
It was just like, I know Tammy came by and picked one up. I don't remember if Dan did.
For you to get it, right?
So do we have any staff reports?
Yeah.
And then I guess this has been falling under commission comments. Anyone else have comments they'd like to share? Commission?
Nope.
Any future agenda items that we'd like to cover or add to consideration?
If anybody, if you ever have time, you want to join me on one of my conferences with some of these people, because working with more than one person being there, different questions arise. And that's always good, but I've just been doing it on my own. So if anybody of you ever want to try to schedule me in, you're in, perfect. I'll talk to Lynn and Iva and then see if we can get that done.
Okay.
And I met with, and Jay does allow us to use this room as long as nobody else is scheduled. Daryl and I just met down here. If there's not somewhere we can go do it. And I just picked up coffee and donuts for us and stuff like that.
I'm really in.
So I will, can you give me your phone number, please? Address. Thank you.
So we'll have the historic resource survey, hopefully the updated draft at the next meeting.
Great.
And then I will try and put together an update on our status or our progress with our historic preservation plans and try and do that for the year. Since it's the end of the year, it's probably a good time to do it.
Sure.
Otherwise, that'll be.
I'm in. I go out.
But other than that, I don't have it.
Yeah, I'm voting.
Do you think we'll meet on the 16th of December?
As long as he gets me a draft, with which to share with y'all, yes. Otherwise, I would be putting an update on the historic preservation plan.
How you set up.
Right.
So.
I mean, my comment would be, I don't want him to rush, just so we can have it on
Right.
16th. I'd rather
Yeah.
have it in.
And I
I mean,
know,
because it's winter, like, I don't think it's gonna really matter.
If it goes.
So I don't know, just encourage him to.
if I do think that he is not willing to compromise quality for the residents.
Like,
A couple times where, I've said, hey, you said you got this to me this week.
Have some free time.
And he's just like, sorry, I'm working diligently, but it's just not ready. So he's
Okay.
people telling me,
Yeah.
hey, it's not ready, so it's gonna have to wait a little bit. So I do not think we're
Yeah.
with an issue with that.
All right, with
On
that,
future agenda items, I wanted to just suggest that maybe we dust off our original sort of purpose and objectives and just kind of, remind us of that and so we can check in as a group on how we're doing and see if any of that needs any change. What I'm talking about, Madison?
that's great.
Maybe we
Within
do
the-
that in January.
I'd like to on future agenda discussion about possible events that we might be able to come up with for maybe next summer. I know that the Historical Society did a cemetery walk here. I don't know that they want to continue doing cemetery walks, but perhaps they could share with us the information they had and we could do one ourselves, something small like that, just one Saturday for a couple hours or something. And try to pull little things like that in to get the knowledge out there that we're now going historical.
Mhm.
I think that's very important to get that historic tourism here. You gotta have that. And that's what's gonna convince people that being historical is profitable. We're gonna help anyhow.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I want to thank Lynn because she does so much. Thank you. I mean, just getting out there,
I'm
very grateful for.
I've always believed Minturn should be historical, but that's because from the day I moved here, people wanted it that way, and it never got there. So now that we've got it to work with, I'm still here.
Yeah.
But it does just really amaze me every time I drive down Main Street, like how slow people will drive and they're just looking and they're curious. And I keep saying you don't get that in the other towns in this valley.
Agreed.
That's because they have roundabouts and.
No, I think this possibility of a limited historic district might really anchor this effort for the town. So,
Yeah. I
hopefully
thought that
that's
was
something
very
we can-
interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing his write-up on
Well,
that.
and I think he's correct that if you have a limited historic district, it opens the door a little more as to what you can get from the National Historical Society to help us.
For sure. Alrighty, anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn the historical HPC meeting on November 18th, 2025.
I'll second it.
Also, all right, thank you very much. Take care,
Okay,
Ken.
you guys, take care.